Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This project is actually a 12 feet by 22 feet mural, and it was a commission project. Um, so I want to share with you guys how I painted this project, and essentially, I know this is not. It's a different. It's not a watercolor painting, but the fundamentally it's the same thing. I approach the same way that I paint this mural, the same exact way, like the way I approach a watercolor painting. The only difference between it is the execution. So um, I would spend just as much time to prepare the concepts and approach and get approvals from the clients, and making sure that they know what to expect, and so they just have a good idea of what the outcome is going to look like. So I created a color key to get that approval before I start the project. Once I get the approval of the color key from the client, start out with the mapping out the wall with, I believe, Vine charcoal. So just set up a grid. So I find out where the center line is, and then I divide the basically divide the wall into grids, so it's easier for me to get the drawings right. And once I have that down, I basically use that same grid, and I just use that grid and uh, I guess put that layer on the top of the color key, so I have the exact match of the grid that I'm doing now. And so, as you can see, I have two different ladders, one on each side, so that way I could, instead of creating a scaffolding, I just feel like since it's just one project, I could just move the ladders around. It is not. I guess it's easier for me to just move the ladder left and right, so that way, instead of building a scaffolding, so I have to move the whole thing back and forth. So this is actually it helped. It was good enough for me. So, but a lot of climbing up and down. Again, so right now I'm just measuring the grid and trying to make sure that the grid works. And I use Vine charcoals because it's actually very easy to get that erase, and any mistakes it could be covered easily. So I did not have to commit to, and it's actually dark enough for me to get the lines that I want to see, and it's easy enough for me to just erase if there's any mistakes. So again, creating this grid actually makes a lot easier, just making sure that the shape are in the right place, the big shapes, the main shapes. And you can see me holding that piece of paper, and that is the color key with the grid on it. And then start out with the main line drawings with the Vine charcoals. Um, and sometimes I guess people either use the same thing, but then they use a projector and just project that image onto the wall, and just trace of that. But I thought about doing that, but I thought it would be more fun for me to just do the traditional way. And I just feel like tracing off of a projector is something that it's just not something, not as fun. So I mean, I just liked having that flexibility and I feel like even though it's easier with the projector, but I guess it feels like it doesn't have that organic feel. I don't know if and this is not something that I used to just trace off of a projector. So once the drawing is done, I am actually beginning to mix the color. And the color that I use, I mean, the paint that I use is actually one of those latex paints. Really, it's just similar to acrylic. When it dries, it just turns just like a rubber. And if you use any of house paint, you'll know that it's these paints, they dry pretty fast. It's got the same type of as acrylic. So initially, I would actually just use mostly these latex paint, and then the touch up, and that's when I start to use acrylic paint to do the fine tuning. And so what I'm doing right now is just mixing a dark line and just making sure the initial vine charcoal line is dark enough so I could see from afar. So because the vine charcoal line can be actually not dark enough, and because you can see it's quite windy. So sometimes if I don't get it dark enough, the lines, it's difficult for me to see. So I just decided to mix a darker color and just really trace out darken the vine charcoal lines. So and this will actually give me a much better idea. And with the darker line, if I step back, I could see it a lot easy. It's a lot easier for me to see. And looking at the video, I'm sure you guys can see the same thing. Like once the dark lines are in, it's much easier to see that the main shapes are where the main shapes are and the relationships with each other. So that this initial line work, like I said, it can be done using a projector, but I just I mean, it's outdoor and gonna have to wait till in the evening to make sure it's dark enough. So I just decided to bypass that and just do it the traditional way, and it's yeah, so it's much more organic, I guess. Maybe that's the closest I can describe it. And so once the line again, actually, once the the overall shape of the composition is close enough, I typically don't draw. I draw everything out. I just to me, it's just I always focus on getting the shape in the right place, and I think what I'm doing is actually climbing making sure. Oh yeah, the light rates that coming off from the top. So it was the angle was kind of tough. So I had to get this line that the powder, so I could just kind of put it on the top where the light source is coming from above. So I like to create those light rates coming radiating off of that. So it was actually very difficult because it was the lines were very straight, and I just had a hard time getting the right angle. And so I came up with like I know they have these snap orange line where so I decided to get those, and that's how I get those lines a little bit more accurate. And once I have that done, and all the major shapes are in, I start to mix a light color. I think that's white. That's the lightest color. And at that point, it's just kind of based on the color key, and I would just kind of put in the light area, the light color, or the lightest area, and so so this is the process. Actually, it's kind of it's very difficult to see, because I have to rely on the color key a lot at this stage, because everything that I put down right now, it's difficult to envision what it would look like when it's finished, and how light is it? Is it too light? Is it not light enough? It's difficult to tell because there's no other color around it. So I would actually start out with that light color, because that is the lightest area, and something that is difficult. I mean, it's easy to get it right, and so I would start out with that, and then after that, what I'm working on right now is actually getting the more the warm orange color that is actually going to be pretty intense in the end. So, and I also put that down as well, because those are the things that those are the color that I will use to get a gauge of what the next color would be like. So, how is this different than compared to painting a small watercolor? I mean, it's again, it's the same idea. When you start out a painting, you're dealing with a white sheet of paper, and the initial block in, it's just usually the much more difficult, or the result is kind of difficult to judge. I think to because painting is all about relationships, how dark one color is next to another. Again, so this is the stage where you can see some of I walk around with my video, my phone camera, so you could see a little bit about my palette. And again, so going back to painting, it's all about relationships. So finding the difficult part in the beginning is to, when you mix a color, when you put it down, it's difficult to judge. So I always kind of hold back and trust my value study, or your color key, because ultimately that is something that I can rely on. And then and especially in this early stage, where when you put down a color against a white wall, or against it's just difficult to judge. So the only thing I can do at this point is make sure the big shapes are in the right place. And then once I have that down, then I would pick one area that I'm pretty confident that I can easily judge the color, judge the value, judge the saturation. And then once I have that, then I can use that as an anchor. And then from there, then one on the top. So right now, you can see the dark color that I'm putting down, and it looks like, I mean, it is actually going to be the darkest color, but it's difficult to see if I get the right color. Maybe it looks like the right value, but I'm not sure if it's the right color. But and because there's no other colors around it, it's even I modified it. There's variations with the darks. I can't see it now. I can only see it. Well, it's dark, but it's dark. Everything is dark because the wall is very light. So again, you can see I'm painting the dark tones, And I always mention this to my student when they're painting watercolor or in my painting classes. I always remind them to not judge your painting until your three values are in, until your dark tone, your mid tone, and light tones are in. So that way you can get a more informed decision in terms of like how they are relating to each other. So again, here I am just trying to fill in the darks, and yes, there are even though it's dark right now, I you can't see it now because it's just there's you can't see that there's not a lot to compare to, especially the background is so light. So even within this dark shape, there's some cooler darks and warmer dark, and each of these colors are just difficult to see by itself. So now I'm working with the kind of the mid-tone. The mid-tone overall dominates the whole painting, and it because it's underwater and it's got that really kind of a turquoise color. So you can see I'm mixing the darker, not as dark as the dark that I put down, but it's definitely on the darker side. And the thing with these paint is that it dries really, really fast. So I mean, I guess the advantage is that once it's dry, then I can work over it. And if there's anything that is too light or too dark, I can go back in and not have to wait like a day or two or even longer if you're painting in oil. So with that um, turquoise mid-tone, I begin to start work on the that main shape, which is the whale. You could see there's some variations in there now, but it's still very difficult to kind of tell. And again, with those subtleties, you will be able to tell. But I do mix it in there, and it's just difficult to see at this point. And even when I was painting, I just have to kind of trust that it's everything is going to come together, and sometimes you cannot see until you have all like the three values in. So yeah, I mean, this is I look at this as a bigger painting. I mean, it. I certainly enjoy painting this. Like I said, fundamentally, it's the same experience, painting, but it's just the way the execution is different. I mean, it's not something I could do with one stroke, but I gotta go back and forth. I gotta move. I gotta step back and see that. So again, it's just the approach, the execution is different, but the same idea, the approach, the way it's the same idea. And honestly, I think it's painting a small painting. It's the experience of painting, the just having to move up and down, and it's just different. Again, at this stage, it's just continue adding just the small detail, filling in the painting, filling in the wall, and make sure that these shapes are in the right place. And what I'm doing right now in the lower right corner is because that corner is done. That corner is dry. So I'm actually putting in the lighter green, and those are the actually bright green. And it may not look like it, but it's actually quite intense. So I want that area to have like consider the center of interest in that area, and then obviously the whale, the big whale, and that is the center of interest, and then also the secondary interest is the lower right corner. And so again, mixing the midtone, and you can see it's slightly cooler. And at that point, it's just now I have some other surrounding shapes to match my color now. So my lower right hand corner gives me and the whale the color and the value of the whale give me a good idea. Oh, is it too light or is it too dark? So, and based on that, I always use that as my anchor. And so it's it's much easier at this as the painting progress, as the mural progress. It's much easier to see comparison now. When I put down a color, I have some other color next to judge to see if the right value, the right color, the right temperature or intensity. So again, I feel like even at this stage, it actually starts to to really get a sense of the direction I want to go. And again, it's just it just takes time. But again, when you by the time I get to this stage, it's just things starts to come together because now you're beginning to see some of the shapes that are in the light tone, some of them in the dark tone, and some of them in the mid tone. And all the subtleties with the color temperature shifting start beginning to see. You could see that the body of the whale, and you could see the background, and all those subtle variations beginning to show up now. And before, it's just much more difficult. And you can see the bottom that I'm working on right now. You can see it's much more kind of warmer green, and compared to the background to the right, the lower right, it's much more bluer. And so these are the things that the subtleties beginning to show up, and that's actually what makes the painting starts to come alive is when you can see those comparisons. So again, because it's a big painting, I actually use a roller to mix a lot of color rather than rely on one or two brushes. I actually had a roller mix a lot of paint and just kind of go over that. And so yeah, so the whole idea is to mix a one area, and because the paint dries pretty fast, it's not like the like I said, it's kind of similar to acrylic. So what I'm doing is I would mix one area, and I would just work on that one area, and when it dries up, I could go and move on to it. I don't have the luxury of like an oil painter at this point, because when I mix a color, I gotta make sure that it kind of still we taking advantage while still wet, and get the transitions work out, and making sure that I take care of the edges. Those are the things that at this point it's much easier while the paint is still wet. So I find that when you work with a watercolor or oil or gouache or acrylic, each one of these mediums will behave differently, and they all have their own pros and cons. And not that one is better than the other. It's just the way these different mediums have their way of working with it. So yeah, so I for that reason I also enjoy using different mediums. I also paint in oil. I paint in gouache. I do digital painting, and when you work on other medium, it makes you appreciate like, oh, I think uh, yeah. So when you work on a different medium, it really give you that kind of appreciation for the medium uh, that you otherwise just kind of not know. But when you work a different medium, it's just the difference is so obvious that you can see, oh, certain things works better in one medium, and some works better and in oil. So but they're the same thing, and ultimately it is just what is it that you want to say. It is the vision, right? It's the vision that you want to communicate, and the execution part is just I feel like it's just the way different mediums handle. So at this point, I'm still trying to get the entire wall cover, and you can see the really just trying to cover, make the original wall, the color, make sure I have that cover, and that would be I guess that would be the block in. So again, it's painting a mural like this. It's a you have to kind of find the balance between like how much to put in, how much details to put in, and like this is a paint that's meant to be seen from pretty far away. It's not like a small watercolor. You could look at it from a few feet away, but then usually you don't look at it from relatively close. So finding the right uh, amount of putting the right amount of in just enough detail and not overwork your painting. It's also something that I have to think about. Even though for this color key, it did a lot of work for me already. But sometimes when you are painting, when you it's actually the life size, then it changes. It changes the when you're there. Some of the things that appears on it may look like it's not holding up. So yeah, so I think for me, just having the experience of painting a big mural like this, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that painting this the life size, and it feels it's really good. It feels like you're painting, you're actually moving around, and you could so that experience is just difficult to quantify. Like I feel like when I'm painting this, I almost picture myself like, oh, this is a big painting. Um, it's just having to work with the brush and climb up and down. It's just uh, so it was a bit of an workout for me, but it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoy just that painting experience. So how is this different with the watercolor? Uh, there is no difference in my opinion, and I remember working at Disney, and some of the scenes that we worked on, they were not that big. They were some of them were as small as like an 8 by 10. But then when it was projected on the screen, it was huge. So That's when I learned that it doesn't really matter what, and I think it's just you could work small, but at the same time, it could be there is no difference. And like I said earlier, I think it's the execution. It's differentiate the whole thing, and but fundamentally, it a painting is a painting. A mural, it's no different than a small painting. So and I treat watercolor or any medium, there is no difference. It's just that different mediums handle differently. Um, so yeah, more and more, the whole this project took about, I would say, a little bit over about a week. I had a really good time working on it, and it was fun. I had a really good time. I learned a lot. I would definitely do it again if I have more opportunities. And and because I didn't, I tried to do a time lapse of everything, but it's just very difficult to get all that in there for the whole entire week. So you can see toward the end, you can see some of the video that I shot with my camera, and then so you can see the different stages, and it gets a little bit more details, and then so that way you'll have a good idea of what the finished painting would look like. And this is that color key, and then I pull out, and then you can see as I go further out, you can see the finished painting. And so yeah, so like I said, it's a little bit different than the video that I've put in my channel, but hopefully in the future I would do more of these different type of projects and not just watercolor. And so I do enjoy watercolor. I just feel like it's at some point I will also be doing other medium as well. So okay, so again, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, just feel free to leave me a note and feel free to share and like, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.